this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. Our guest today is an example of how you can encounter people out there in this space. And when you're impressed, you can bring them on your show and get to know them even better. So I saw her for the first time present a year ago at a Meet You in Kentucky conference, was very impressed. And then when I saw her again this year, I knew that I had to pull her aside and tell her how impressed I was. I've been binge listening to her podcast, The Cultured Focus Practice, ever since. And now we get to have a chat about how she manages her team remotely, but effectively in person when she did. So Dr. Tara Vossenkemper, welcome.
Thank you. I know I said this to you before, but I did not know that you saw me last year. I didn't know that you were there last year. So that's really awesome to hear.
Yes,
Yeah.
it sure was. What a great time. Such a great group.
Yeah, I know, it really is. Mm-hmm.
I love it. So let's start off with some background. Tell us your career climb. How did you get to be doing all of the things that you're doing now?
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm trying to think, how far back do I go? I sort of fell into counseling, and then I did a PhD program. I was going to do counselor admin supervision. I've been teaching since I finished my master's program, which feels relevant for the podcast later on. That's why I'm saying it right now. And I hated academia. I loved being a student. I hated being in the system as an academic. Felt like I was working harder, but the outcomes never changed. Like there was no expansion in the way that I really needed it, And so I didn't know what to say about it back then. I just knew I didn't like it. And I also had my firstborn. So I was only in academia for it was legit like 2 years. And prior to that, and actually after that, again, I'd been sort of teaching adjuncting and then teaching in academia and then adjuncting after. So I'm still like embedded in, institutions, but I did not want a full-time assistant professorship. Like had my son, I realized how much I didn't value that and how much more I just wanted to do practice. But also I know myself, I didn't want to only do practice. And so that's why I continued teaching. And then I brought on a bunch of supervisees, and then it sort of like expanded into a group practice from there. So this is back in 2017, but really 2018 is when I quit academia and like went full time into, I'm going to do this, like, let's go, And so that's when I'm not going to say it took off, but I guess that's when I took off, And then from there, I love business. And so from there, it just like continued to evolve. Like this group practice kept growing, and sort of, I was trying to organize it while I was building it. And I, probably, well, no, not probably, like for sure, with a bunch of ignorance, stepped in thinking like, oh, this is fun. I got this is easy. It's newsflash. It's not, it's not easy. Like there's things that need to be done, and there's ways to do them well and ways to do them horribly. And I feel like I've done the whole like spectrum of like well and not so good. And so, at some point I stopped clinical work. At some point I stopped supervision and shifted more. I think my energy was getting a little bit, I was tired of doing same thing in the group practice world. And so I started leaning more into consulting. And I also can't really do things unless I feel very grounded and like conceptually grounded. And I have to like, I have to be really in alignment with, okay, well, why am I doing this though? Like, why am I doing this thing? And what's my groundedness? And well, yeah, I could do this, mastermind, for example, but like, why right now? And how's it going to serve people? And but how does it fit into a bigger framework? And so it's been like years of sort of grappling with that from like a consulting perspective. And like, I mean, very, very recently, I have developed my own framework for that reason that I think fully encompasses like group practice ownership.
Yeah.
And so it's funny to me, like I've been doing consulting, but I would say in the past 6 months in particular, I've been starting to take it much more seriously and like more intentionally stepping away from group practice ownership over into the consulting world.
Hmm.
And so currently I do both. It's like group practice stuff over here and then consulting on the side. And the benefit is that they feed into each other. So that's really nice. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you made that very succinct.
That's, oh, good. I was like, I could keep talking, but like, I feel like that it's so boring to talk about. I'm like, I don't know, like that's it. But
Not to us. This
talk
is
about
about
like,
you about it.
I don't know what is interesting to others people about it. It's like, I don't know, what do you want to know? Like,
I
I'll
think that that's
talk.
in part why I entitled the show what I did. I mean, compassion is a core value for sure, but it really is about the climb and how we got to where we are.
Mhm.
And very oftentimes, it's not always what we anticipated. And I
My
love
God.
stories where people kind of have the twists and turns and then end up in a place where, okay, it made sense all along, but that wasn't always my vision. And so I think that's
Mhm.
such a fundamental, foundational starting point for everyone because it
Yeah.
builds us up to everything that's going on right now. So, when did Gino Wickman's traction come into the picture? And
Yeah.
tell us your thoughts on the entrepreneurial operating system.
Yeah. So you said something right before that I wanted to talk. I just
Mm.
wanted to say one thing. You're talking about the climb and sort of the twists and turns and um oh my God, it was something that felt so relevant. Oh, that's gonna drive me crazy now. Like, what
How we
was it?
don't always end up where we think we will.
Oh, that's the thing.
Mhm.
I literally never know where I'm going. I mean, sincerely, I have no idea. I know that I trust myself in process.
Yeah.
That's what I know. And I can see like a little bit in advance, but some people are really, really skilled at like, hey, I want that thing. I don't have that in me. I'm sort of like, I don't know, like, yeah, let's just go in this general direction. Like, yeah, this sounds good. I'm most interested in like going in that broad direction, but specifically what it looks like, I don't fucking know. I don't have any idea.
That
I
is
don't know.
so relatable. You have this
Yeah.
way of wording things where I'm like, check, but I don't
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that I would have necessarily articulated it that way. So you know
Yeah.
yourself well and you've got the verbiage.
Yeah. And then the knowing myself well is also why I trust myself to go in a broad direction and not have to like have an exact, especially I think that's why also having like a conceptual framework is so important to me because I'll go anywhere I want to. I have very high self-efficacy. Like I'll do whatever I want. But why am I doing it? Like if it's not grounded, it's not gonna be sustainable. And I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, what's the point? And so it's like also a little existential in that way. But anyway, I digress. EOS. Gina Wickman came into my life. I love Gina Wickman. Gino, not Gina. I had a painter come in and give me a bid. This is when, let me think about this. Might have been in 2018 or early 2019. I think it was early 2019. This guy came in to give us a bid on the space because I wanted to paint the walls. And he was great. And we were just talking shop about business. And at that point, I mean, I know you relate to this, but binging everything around me with regard to business. Like I was listening to podcasts and I was reading a bunch of books, and like anything I could get my hands on, I was just like, devouring. And so, um, I don't remember what he said or how the conversation even evolved. I ended up not using him because he was super expensive, but he was very nice. And so as we were talking, he mentioned traction and he was like, you have to read traction. He was really adamant about how great it was. And yeah, like, okay, cool. Just add it to my list. So I bought it. I like a book. I like if I'm going to read something, my preference is to have a hard copy. Not
Mhm.
at this point because, we're full-time RVing and there's no space really for books. But at that point in my life, I wanted hard paperback copies technically, but I wanted like an actual book, physical copy. And then I got it and I read it, and just right away it was like hook, line, and sinker. I'm done. Like, this is it. This is literally it. This is what I've needed. This is what has been, again, it's like a conceptual framework. I need something to feel grounded in, to keep sort of building. I needed something to help me make sense of um hats and roles and business structure, just like basic. It feels so basic at this point when I look back, but I don't have a family of business owners. I don't have none of that in my life. Nobody, no, like, it did not exist.
Yeah.
And so doing it is like, I'm creating this path that I don't know who's walked down it, but well, however, like, I'm just going to go this direction. And EOS helped me see, like, sorry, EOS is the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is the system that, it's like the business structure, that Wickman, that's what he's writing about in Traction. And
Mhm.
Traction is technically one of the six components of EOS for anybody who doesn't know this, it's listening. So I, yeah, I love, yeah. I forget what the second part of the question was. It was like, how did I find out about it? It's like this random painter. I don't even remember his name, but he was great. He was super nice. That was my biggest takeaway is EOS. Yeah.
Well, let's break it down. So, this is the first time we've talked about traction on the show. And
Oh,
for
cool.
those that are listening and aren't familiar, what are those six components and what was
Yeah.
your integration like in your practice?
Oh, yeah. So Traction is the book written by Gina Wickman, and he talks about being inspired by his dad, who was a sort of a lifelong entrepreneur, which is pretty cool. And he breaks basically business structure down into six kind of broad components: vision, process, data, people, issues, and traction. Traction is its own component. And the book goes into all of the tools associated with each of these components and how to integrate it, how to implement it into your own practice. And the integration piece, I will say this, is that the way that he writes the book, like the order in which he rolls out each of the components, is not the same order as implementation. So this is my impulsivity at play. The first time I rolled it out, I just did it. He's like, oh, sweet. The first section of the book is after the intro, of course. He's writing about vision. So vision is a variety of things, but includes your core values, your core focus, your marketing strategy, your, I should say target market, but like marketing strategy, broadly speaking, your 5, 10, or 20, your target. You get to choose the amount of time. Most people end up choosing a 10-year target, but your 10-year target, your 3-year picture, your 1-year plan, your quarterly rocks, and main issues that are happening, which, I say, like, vision is one component. Building out vision can take, I mean, it took us, the first iteration of our core values, I think, took us 3 to 4 hours in total. It's like, oh, holy wow, like all of it, it sounds so light to talk about. It's dense. I think that's why I like it. It's simple. It's dense. Like, it's very thorough. So he rolls out the book. I'm sorry, he writes the book, and vision is like the first piece of the pie. I just started with that, where I was like, yeah, let's go in order. We started it up. It's not the order in which you're supposed to do it. And so we were trying to go through, and like, we were starting these L10, they call it level 10 meetings or L10 meetings. Having an L10 meeting on a weekly basis and a weekly rhythm is a tool related to the traction component. Is how you will get and maintain traction, just as a fun factoid. And so the first round of like integration, um, I'm not gonna say it was awful, because there were some good takeaways, but it did not last. I think that speaks for itself. Like, it didn't last. And so I knew something was off, but I could not articulate what. And in those moments, I gotta like hold it. I'm like, no, this needs to go on pause. This is not it. Like, I can't do this thing. And so it did go on pause. And then there was some turnover with the right people turning over. And I rolled it out a second time. God, I can't remember if it was 2020 or 2021. I don't remember. Goodness, might have been 2020. And that's where it really kicked off. That's where we rolled it out in the right way, where I finished reading the book for the first time and like actually paid attention to how it comes to life. And even the very first time I read the book, I remember feeling like overwhelmed. It's not like a fun necessarily read. I mean, like I have it right next to me. I mean, I literally like I keep it on me because I use it as a reference guide. It's constantly with me.
Yeah.
Look at this like dog-eared cop. There's like notes everywhere. It's anyway, it's not like a fun read though. I can't listen to it, but there is a fable version of Traction, and that book is called Get a Grip. And that's where it's like, Patrick Lencioni, he'll write like stories or like fables. It's sort of the same thing. And it's a story about a consultant bringing, it doesn't matter. I listened to that and I kept listening on repeat, and I would like pause and like take notes in my phone, and I would just play it again. And then I would go back to Traction, and then I would go back to Get a Grip. And so I was just like jumping back and forth between these two to like feel how does this actually come to life. And so when we went to do it the second time, and when I had more of the right people in place, it it was so much better. Just on every level, it was so much better. And so that is the EOS story. So we've been doing it. I time is just doesn't exist it doesn't exist. I don't have any concept of time. So I don't remember if it was 2020 or 2021, but we've been doing it. I think it was 2021. We've been doing it since then.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was 2021. Yeah, because that's at the time, clinical director started in July of that year, maybe. And
Mhm.
I rolled it out that quarter where we did a full day, our first like full day meeting with using EOS, because you have quarterly full day meetings with your leadership team. I don't know, again, this is like, I don't know who knows about this or not. So I'm sorry if I'm saying things that are obvious. And if I'm not, then sorry that I'm talking so fast about it. It's like this weird, weird
Yes.
tension inside of me. Yeah. So we did our first full day meeting with the leadership team. And before he actually officially started as the clinical director. And then when he came on, I think in August, that's when we kicked off the weekly L10 meetings. And oh, great. It was so incredible.
Wow. So this is
Yeah,
a broad question, but
sure.
I'm wondering if you were to give us a snapshot of your practice before the successful implementation and where it's at now. Because for those listening who are interested, grab a copy
Yeah.
of the book, delve in, join your mastermind, get a
Hmm.
guide, somebody who's implementing it that can help.
Yeah.
But what are the biggest takeaways from more of a tangible, from the business owner perspective? Maybe a little
Yeah.
bit more rooted in kind of how you're feeling about your team,
Oh,
how things
yeah.
are structured, and your vision, and how that's changed.
Yeah. That's such a good question. Excuse me. Maybe in the very beginning, I was just doing so much more. I was in all my seats. I was wearing all the hats, and I would just sort of go in order of like where the biggest fire was. What has to get done right now? Like that was
That
actually
is
it,
so relatable.
Yeah, yeah. Like, this thing has to be done right now. And I mean, I was sort of constantly on, working 50 or 60 up, probably 60 hours constantly working. This is a double-edged sword because I like working. I like I need something productive and not to produce actually, but like I like to grapple with things. I want to think about problems and I like I like that. Um, but also I feel like a working line border collie sometimes where I'm like, I need this like something to focus on, and like sprint after. And then also, how sometimes there are those dogs that are so exhausted, but they won't stop playing ball. Like that's what it turns into. That's always the risk is that it's going to turn into, I can't stop myself. I don't know how to slow this down on my own, especially when I'm going so fast. Because initially it's exciting. At some point it became frantic. And then COVID was part of that. Of course, COVID hit when I also had a son. So all of this is like literally had a newborn like a week before everything shut down. So, I mean, he was born in, we shut down in maybe um, May, the end of April 2020. He was born the middle of April in 2020. And so I'm saying that to say um, it wasn't working. It was like functioning, but it wasn't working. But, compared to now, I mean, the ways that I'm needed now have nothing to do with the day-to-day operations of the business. Like my time is spent, I'm not going to say always doing what I want necessarily, but my time is spent on the things that primarily light me up and also are way more like big picture in focus. I'm way more in a visionary role for
Mhm.
my practice. So I am sort of charting this course and like coming up with concepts and ideas and then figuring out, okay, well, how can we implement? And then like, all right, let's get it going. And I don't like to maintain ownership of things that need consistency or like maintenance, honestly. There's a support from my leadership team, but I don't really have any connection. And by connection, I mean like a direct reporting line connection with the rest of the team. So my interactions with them are the way that I want them to be, which is fun and light and forward focused. Tell me what you want to do. Give me feedback on how things are going for you so I can see what we can do on the back end. So maybe not always fun and light, but like
Yeah.
they feel richer to me. Like I'm not there sort of following up on the day-to-day things. I don't want any part of that, honestly. I'm there to say, hey, what's your future look like with us? How do we make this happen? What are you not saying to me that you need to be saying about the practice, about your work, about your trainings, about any of these things, you know? So I think I'm answering your question. I might have gone off on a little tangent, but yeah. I
That
think
was
that most, oh, and honestly, way less hours. I mean, my goal is like 10 to 15 a week. Like in an ideal world, and those would honestly be spent in L10 style meetings and slash or just doing things that I want to do, not doing maintenance oversight. Like, I'm not doing that. So yeah, I've worked like way fewer hours. Yeah,
Mhm.
which is also nice.
So, for someone who's listening and is intrigued, let's say they read the book and they start to implement, what do you think is a realistic time frame for somebody to implement successfully?
Mm-hmm. That's such a hard question. Gino Wickman talks about this where he says, I don't remember if he writes that on average it takes 2 years, but it can take up to 2 years to really get it going. So you could have everything in place and like, let's say 6 months. I think we did. We had everything in place by that 6 month mark. But for us to like hit our stride, 2 years. And so the first times you're doing something like, the first time you set quarterly rocks, which are 90-day goals, the most important priorities in the next 90 days, you don't set so many that you can't achieve them. You don't make them so aspirational that they're not going to be achieved. You set them to hit them. They sucked. Ours sucked. And we didn't know that they sucked until we went through it and we were like, what the fuck? This is awful. Like, we didn't get any of these done. What happened? Or maybe we got one of 10 done. First of all, 10 is way too many. Second of all, they were just shitty rocks. Like, we did not. So it's like there's a learning curve that takes place when we go to start doing this. So you might be going through the motions, but as it's not, you're not going to be as good as you will be when you continue to do it and reflect on what you're doing and then make it more nuanced and like evolve. But you can get all the pieces in place at like a 6 month mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's helpful, I think, just for the reality of it,
Yeah.
because a lot of us, the key, I would assume, is not to wait until you are so overwhelmed
Mm-mm.
and inundated with tasks, and then you're implementing this out of desperation, and
Yep.
you're so ready for a change.
Yeah.
You want to have a realistic time frame, trust the process, give
Mhm.
it the time that it needs to be successful, stay consistent with it, and not get
Yeah.
discouraged.
Yeah. And I'll say too that I'm glad you're saying this because what's coming up for me is thinking about one of the, I've talked with you separately about this, I know, but thinking about one of the first things that they talk about implementing is the accountability chart. That's one of the first things. Technically, there's a focus day, but you would have an actual EOS implementer come in to do a focus day. Um, most people, I'll say most people in our field do not go that route. They don't do the EOS implementer because it's crazy expensive. And that's a whole different conversation. But my point is, you don't necessarily do a focus day. You could, but you would at that first 90 day, sorry, at that first full day meeting after the focus day,
Mhm.
you start with an accountability chart. So immediately what an accountability chart does is it helps you solidify the necessary roles in your organization. You don't think about people. Everybody falls into this trap where they're like, well, Joe's really good at this. And so he should be the person, blah, blah, blah. No, fuck Joe. We're not talking about people with an accountability chart. You look at the seat that you need. The seats that you need, most businesses have like pretty consistent and basic seats, especially depending on size. You're going to see a lot of overlap from business to business and some, of course, nuance as well, But the point is, you focus on building out a seat and then core responsibilities for that seat up to five. This is not a position description. So core responsibilities are not like um, run payroll on a biweekly basis and make sure you do payroll reporting. No, it might be something like high level finances and in parentheses, including forecasting, budgeting, payroll. Like that would be like an example of a responsibility and it would be under a specific role, maybe like HR or finances or like visionary if they're still doing payroll. In my case, I am. That's something that's going to be off my list very soon. So my point is, you would do an accountability chart. You get these responsibilities cleaned up and like clarified for not only the practice at your current size, but also like your next leg of development. So if you see your evolution or if you want to grow, what's the next seat that you're going to need, or what's the first thing that's going to start to fall through the cracks? You want to try to proactively or preemptively develop an accountability chart to account for that thing.
Okay.
So I'm saying this to say, when you have that developed, immediately you have stuff off your plate. Immediately. That's why it's first, in my opinion. That's why it's first. I don't actually know why it's first. I'm not Gina Wickman, but if I had to channel him, I was channeling his energy, I would say immediately, that's why it's first. Because right away, and then let's say we have a meeting and we're talking and there's this project, there's all these tasks. I was 100% prone to saying, okay, well, I guess I'll do this. I guess I'll do this because the roles weren't clear. The seats were not clear. And so I ended up doing all of this stuff that frankly, I didn't fucking want to do because it was tedious and boring as hell. Secondly, I shouldn't have owned in the role that I was in. And so when you can figure out what is the accountability chart and then which person, then you plug the people into the seat, then it's clear.
Wow.
So when it's like, we need to develop this policy, I 1000% don't want to do that. It's going to go to the director of operations, or it's going to go to the integrator, or it's going to go to the HR person. Like, it's not going to go to me or something like marketing related. Nope, I'm not going to do it because it's not in alignment with the responsibilities for my role. And so I think I'm saying this because I think most group practice owners, most business owners, especially before their structure and like systems in place, I would specifically say structure in place around like something like an accountability chart. A lot of us have systems, but we still end up doing so much. We need clarity on roles as well. And so I talk about this is like one of the reasons why I could talk about EOS with such a probably too much fervor, but because it's instantly whenever you go to implement it or you start to do something like the accountability chart, you're immediately like, it's like taking it's like a first pass of like a super shitty, dirty window with like a giant towel and Windex. Like you're gonna see streaks, but like, oh my God, I can actually see through this now. Like this is clear. It's still dirty, but this is way more clear. And you're not the one that has to clean everything up. Okay, now I'm done. I'm sorry.
No, don't ever apologize. That was great information. I immediately start to think about finding the people for those seats. I think about group practice
Yeah.
owners who might struggle with the financial side of things and how am I going to afford these people? So tell us your thoughts on finding these individuals specifically for a mental health group practice. Are any of these roles still seeing clients and clinical in nature, or are
Mhm.
they strictly implementing this process?
Yeah, for me, this is the beauty of something like EOS and an accountability chart because you're not creating your accountability chart to reflect current and like immediate next need. It should not reflect what you want in 5 years. So a lot of people, something they might have, and the thing with it too is you can have one person in more than one seat. You
Oh,
cannot have more than one person in one seat. So if I'm owning marketing, I own it. It's mine. I might be able to delegate a task or something, but like the responsibilities are mine. I'm the final person. I'm like the final say. And so initially, I think I was in three seats. Once it was like cleared out, I had a clinical director in place. She was also seeing clients. I had a client care coordinator. She was my initially client liaison, client care, basically my intake coordinator. And I bumped up to office manager, which entailed office manager did some things and client care did some other things. So she was in two seats. So my clinical director is overseeing clinicians and also seeing clients. I was doing marketing and I'm managing director and I maybe something else. I don't even know. So that's one of the things that's going to happen is initially is that by creating these seats, it doesn't mean that you have to fill them with a bunch of outside people. It's just giving you clarity on the structure, like clarity on what is right now and what needs to come to pass next.
Mhm.
And so if you realize as you're doing something, also I think it cleans things up for people in terms of that's what people do. They're like, man, I need to hire somebody. And I think, I don't know, like, are you sure? Do you really need to? Maybe your seats just fucking suck. Like maybe they're not clear. You could probably um I remember working with somebody in the EOS Mastermind. I was working with somebody and she came to me and I think she had like 10 seats. I was like, girl, you need like five. Like I think we cut it in half. It's like this is too much. One, this is too much. And also you don't need you don't need five people. Like all of this is actually this one seat. And so you can condense down what you think you need. You probably don't need as much as what you think you need. And slash, or you can internalize the fact that you might have one person in more than one seat. Totally okay, assuming they have capacity to do it all. And so when you start to run into like, they're not performing, then you start to question like capacity or is it the right person for the seat? Or, like there's
Yeah.
so many other conversations you can have around that. But I love that question that you just asked. Thank you for asking that. I forgot about that because it's been a long time since we've like been in that
That just
space. But
brought the
yeah,
stress level and the pressure of how do we make this
yeah,
work very feasible.
yeah, it's absolutely feasible. Yeah.
Mhm.
You don't
Okay.
have to you don't have to add on. It's
You can work with what you've got.
you work with what you have. That's why, yeah, it's so
Yeah.
great.
Okay. So
Uh,
tell us about your mastermind, how that came about, what
oh,
people can expect.
how did it come about? I don't know how it came about. I think just enough people. I love EOS. So we've been doing it for years at this point. It frames everything. I think you were at my presentation, so I'm going to say this to you, but you probably, I think, have already heard me say it. So this is for everybody else who has not heard me say this. And if you have, sorry in advance, I'm going to say it again. I taught me to operate without some, like clinicians operate from a theoretical groundedness. If I say like, okay, what's your theoretical orientation? I'm probably going to get an answer, whether or not you're super grounded in it or you're sort of like, it's a great, like you have something, like there's some belief system that you have around the work that you do. I, that's what EOS did for me with regard to business structure in particular. And again, I have to feel grounded in something in order to do it effectively and to talk about it. It has to be dense and robust and thorough because you know, how rats will they do what's called latent learning, where like if you put a rat in a maze and you put cheese at the end, it like, ooh, it's gonna find its way to the cheese. And if you put a rat in a maze and you don't put any cheese there, it just sort of like meanders around and it's just like walking around doing whatever it wants. And then you put cheese in there and it gets there super fast. Like it immediately knows. So I think about like that internal, they're like wolves, like they're roam their territory. They don't have the shortcuts, they have like, broadly speaking, they have territories. A lot of animals do. This doesn't matter. My point is that rat is engaging in what they call it's latent learning. Like it looks like it's not doing much, but the reality is like, no, it has a lay of the land. Like it's exploring, it's making sense of what the structure is. I do that for myself. And so I will consistently like run through these like labyrinths, more
Lab.
than one labyrinth. Run through it more than once because every time I do, like every time I'm making a pass, I'm like looking at something slightly new. So think of it as like turning every stone over. For me, this is the only structure that I've encountered that answers all my questions. Like there's a space for everything to live. And I've like expanded in my own ways, like again, culture and sort of feedback. I mean, my own framework is different, but
Mhm.
for the business structure in particular, it answers everything. It answers all the questions. There's a place for everything to live. So why am I saying this? What question did you ask me? Shit, Julia. Oh, thanks. Totally forget about that. My bad. So I love it. And I talk about it like this and whatever. And maybe people were like asking me about how to do certain things. And I don't know, it might have been like a shower thought one day where I was like, well, fuck me. Like, I'll just do a mastermind. Like, 12 months is too long. 3 months is enough. Like, let me make it 6 months.
Hmm?
Get like a fair price. Cause it's just like, I've been beta testing. So it's like, oh, beta launch this. I'll see what it's like. And then I put it out there and I had people sign up. And um, that's like the long and short version. I was like, this, I think people need this because a lot of folks, when they were, a lot of what I was hearing is that when folks were reading traction, they would start it and then they would stop, or it felt really overwhelming. It was too much to do, or they would do it and then also people were doing it wrong, where I'd be like, ooh, no, that's not it, bro. Like you're close, but like, mm, mm, kind of like off the mark, you know? Or again, start it and stop. And then like, I need to pick that back up. And so I kind of thought, well, what if I just create this container? I'm walking people through how to do it, answering questions they don't know they're going to have, and speaking of problems in advance of them occurring so that they can like prep and like do it more effectively than what I did, quite frankly. And also like share some trade secrets. Like our weekly meetings. I actually, for my last one, I recorded us doing an Elton style meeting, and my leadership team, they're so fucking awesome. They didn't care, you know. So we're doing this Elton meeting, and I just posted it, and I was like, "Look, this is how it's run. Like,
Wow.
this
So it
is
really
what
brings
it
the
should
book
look
to
like."
life.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
And like real time feedback, like even with the accountability chart, I had a lot of the um so we meet twice a month for 6 months to do training where it's like there's content education training, we're talking through things, and then it's not like hot seat style, but of course I love Q&A, so there's always Q&A. And then there's the other 2 weeks in that month are optional working meetings. So not only in the trainings are people asking me in real time about like feedback on the accountability chart, but then also coming to the working meetings. Again, it's like I have this one working meeting with someone and it's recorded. All the work, everything's recorded, of course, and like shared and saved. But we spent the entire time sitting and working through and talking through and making edits to the accountability chart. And so it's like you're not, I sort of think like you don't have to do it alone. It's not, it's intentional, it's grounded, it's thorough, it feels overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming. And that's like, for me, that's the intention is like people who know they want to do this, and it's like, oh, that's a little much. And so there's like this, sweet spot, this sort of happy medium. And I would have fucking loved to have had something like this when I started. And again, not an implementer because God love implementers, but I'm not going to spend 40 grand on like, I'm not doing that. I'm just, I don't know. I didn't have that money at that time. I don't even want to spend that money this time.
Yeah.
Spend that. That's a lot. That's a lot
Hmm.
of money, Yeah. So
So
no,
would
thank you.
reading the book beforehand be a requirement, or could you read
Yeah.
it as you go?
No, you should read it as you go. And if you, no, you could read it as you go. You could do it like in conjunction with the mastermind and slash, or honestly, I still to this day, like I'll open it up. I have it with me almost all the time. It just stays in my work bag and I will just use it as a reference guide. So whatever you're doing, because what's great about it is they walk you through how to do things. But again, you don't get like the follow up and the questions and the what's going to happen and come up. And, there's it's different reading something and trying to bring it to life versus actively doing it with others. And so even if we weren't reading along, if we talked about something like the accountability chart, for example, in our one of the first meetings, and honestly, the one after that too, you would just go back and reference that section in the book. And so you don't have to, you can, I mean, especially if we're doing it, we would do it, in bits and pieces. Like we're going to do this week and this that week. So it breaks it down into, I would say, very digestible bites, clumps, reading clumps of food. There's like a clump of Play-Doh that I'm going to eat.
Comes to cheese for
No,
the rats.
yeah, okay, there we go. I got animals on my brain always. There's always animals on my brain. That's my husband's fault. That's on him.
When does the next
Yeah.
one start?
Oh, soon, June 5th.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I'll make sure to include the link for those interested, and there's still space
yeah,
available.
yeah. Limited. It's limited space. It's limited space. Yes, but yeah, there's space available. It is. Do you want me to, is it, I feel like I want to say what the price is just so people aren't like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, cool.
transparency is helpful.
It's 6 months mastermind. It's three payments of 1,000, 3 months, or pay in full for 2,750.
Got it.
So yeah. And I think that I always have stuff around pricing where I'm like, it feels very arbitrary. It needs to be, of course, worth my own time, but also you know this about me because I've told you a couple
Value.
times. I have to provide value. I can't do something if it's not like it has to meet what people need. And like it's really important to me to be of service and provide value to others. Um, so I try to price it very fairly. I will
Mhm.
say that. Yeah.
Yes, I
So
appreciate you sharing that.
yeah,
It sounds like a very worthwhile endeavor, and I'm grateful
it
that
is.
it's something that you
Yeah.
offer. So I'll make it very easy to have people sign up if they're interested from
Thanks. That's super
listening.
nice.
This episode
Yeah.
will release this Friday, so we'll make sure
Oh,
to get it
that's
out in time.
exciting.
So we have to talk about the podcast. Tell us how to
Oh yeah.
out the name and where that came from and your podcasting experience.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't know how it came about. It's another one okay, you know what? Actually, I do know. I started full-time RVing 6 months-ish ago. So let's say December of 2025, four. What month? We're in 2025. So December of 2024. There we go. Time doesn't exist. What did I tell you? And at that time, I think I felt stagnant and stuck. And like I just not it things weren't right, but I didn't know. And I don't like that feeling. I don't like to feel that way. Like, no, I don't think anybody does. And I especially think that people who like the creative energy and a little bit of like the frenetic, like I'm gonna build something, like it's almost like there's a gaping hole in my life. Like nothing is exciting me. This is bland. This is so bland. So we started full-time RVing, which has been incredible for our family. Like it's still live. I mean, laundry, dishes, bill, everything is still the same.
Yeah.
But something about the movement and like we're not happy. We just up and go. Where are we gonna go? I don't know. Let's go here. We can leave early if we need to. We could stay longer if we needed to. We can go. Like we left a terrible storm and like headed south to Louisiana outside of Baton Rouge, and it was so incredible. It was so incredible. I don't know what it is. Something about the movement. It's like it freed everything up. And my husband also, he started to sort of feel better. He's in this funk, he started to feel better and we're doing things new. And then that's where the mastermind, that's not true. Mastermind idea came to me before that because it was the first launch was I think November of last year. And the podcast, I was grappling with this concept, like what am I rooted in? What's important to me? And I thought was culture. Like culture is the foundation of any structure you build. If you don't have a healthy culture, I don't give a fuck. It's not going to work. Your structure is going to suck. Your practice is going to be in ruins. I'm just kidding. That's a little extreme, but the culture of the practice for me was non-negotiable as well as the structure. And so I thought, oh, like culture, like it's culture focused. So somehow, of course, like probably conversation with ChatGPT, but I came up with this culture focused practice. Like that's what I want to build out. It has since not the podcast. The podcast name is still the same. So my um membership has changed names, but that's how it came up. And I thought, well, all things are going to be rooted through a culture focused lens. So even building out EOS, even building out the structure, all of the questions are, I will not do anything if it erodes culture. I will not grow or build if it costs me the integrity of the practice or if it erodes the culture, the trust, the safety of the practice.
Yeah.
0%, it's not worth it to me. And so, yeah, I just decided, okay, let's do it. And I've been talking about a podcast. Even Jeremy, the testing tech out, Jeremy Sharp, he's a fucking homie. I love Jeremy. We were talking a long time ago, I think maybe a year and a half ago. I was asking him about podcast stuff and we were talking. I'm like, well, how do you do this? And I'm getting all these details and logistics. This is my labyrinth. I told you the labyrinth. And I kept circling back and I kept talking and I kept doing. And I went to chat my bestie and I said, I don't know what it is about this. Like, I just can't, I'm not doing it. And chat was like, said something. And I said, honestly, it'd be easier just to record a video and like put it on YouTube. And chat said, well, I'll just do it. And I was like, okay. And I started to record and I was like, oh my God, Tara, just fucking record this and pull the audio for a podcast. Like, what are you doing? I don't want intro music, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do it in a way that I want to do it. And then I just did it. And it took me a solid year and a half to get it going. But
Wow.
that's okay.
Look
That's
at
my
you
labyrinth
now.
running. I know. So
Well, and
once
I
it
can
was,
speak to, as
yeah.
a listener, what I find so invaluable. So you had mentioned your experience as a teacher, that comes through for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Very
yeah. Nice.
structured. I love how your personality shows through, just like in this interview, but you always come back to what is our structure? What is our outline? So much valuable, insightful, helpful information. You have a lot of series. So I'm like embedded in the
Oh,
series
yeah.
now about burnout and leadership.
Yeah.
And so thank you for officially making it happen. So I'll include a link to that as well so everybody
You're so
can
nice.
check it out. What would you like to leave the listeners with today, reflecting on the shifts that you've made, the leaps that you've taken with the podcast, making these changes within your practice, the mastermind? What do you think is helpful for all of them to still be thinking about when this episode's over?
You know what is coming up for me right now is feeling grounded in your own belief system. Like I have so many things I could say about EOS and like
Yeah.
I'm not short of like thoughts and answers and opinions and feelings and all that. But the reality is that I'm saying this because it's just so reflective of my own like lived experience. I have so many group practice owner friends and consultant friends who I'll go to and I want to pick their brain and we'll talk shop. But ultimately everything they say is grist for my mill. Like I'm gonna take this in, but it has to work for me. And so not to plug EOS again, but I think one of the other things I love so much about it is that it's a framework. And within that framework, you make it work for you. This is a structure to provide you some like relief. That's why your accountability chart should be your own. Your Elton style meetings, your issue, well, Elton is very structured, but like your leadership team is what you want it to be. Your vision, it's yours, your values, reflective of you. Like all of it is you. And so it feels important to me that none of you, anybody listening, like don't try to take what I'm doing and just do it for yourself. Like you don't have to be me, and not that anybody wants to. Like, please, dear God, don't be me. But don't just make it be your own. Like it's your practice should be. I think the thing I love about theory so much is that it's like it is the embodiment of the person who developed it. Like Freud and Adler and like all these incredible Yalom. Oh my God. Anytime you read him, you see his theory oozing in his work. It's everywhere. It's how he sees the world. That should be your practice. That should be what you're building. That should be how you show up. Like it's yours to own. So be grounded, make it your own and be grounded in you. That's what I want to leave you with. That obviously is important to me. So.
Well, your passion for this and what you do and how you do it is so infectious. Thank you
Oh,
for
thanks.
presenting in the way that you did. That drew me in. Thank you for your authenticity and integrity and for all that you share through the mastermind, through the podcast, what you shared with us today. I can't tell you how helpful it is. So really
You're so nice. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Also for, well, one, coming up and talking to me, but you're dope, man. I was thinking today about how awesome you seem. I hardly know you. And it's like, I think we're going to be friends. Like, I like her. We're going to stay connected. I'm seriously, I was literally
I
thinking about
definitely
you
hope
today.
to.
Yeah, no, you,
Awesome. Well, I
yeah,
mean,
you
that
get
goes
it.
right back at you. Total
Yeah,
badass. So
good, good. I'm glad.
thank you.
Yeah.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.